Michigan Secretary of State and Democratic gubernatorial candidate Jocelyn Benson facing scrutiny over her past role with the Southern Poverty Law Center following a federal indictment against that organization. That indictment coming down Tuesday, and it's got a lot of people not familiar with the SPLC wondering who exactly is the Southern Poverty Law Center. Well, it was founded in 1971 in Montgomery, Alabama. In the end of the 1980s, the SLPC, they had officially rebranded themselves into a group that purposefully monitors hate in America. They also produce an annual intelligence project that monitors so-called extremist organizations and hate groups. Now, the indictment filed Tuesday says that the SPLC began operating a covert network of individuals who were either associated with violence and extremist groups, such as the Ku Klux Klan, or who had infiltrated violent extremist groups at the SPLC's direction. Now, the indictment says, unbeknownst to donors, some of their donated money was used to fund the leaders of organizations of racist groups at the same time that the SPLC was denouncing those same groups on its website. Here's Acting U.S. Attorney General Todd Blanche explaining part of that indictment.
According to the charges in the indictment, the SPLC is a nonprofit entity that purports to fight white supremacy and racial hatred by reporting on extremist groups and conducting research to inform law enforcement groups with the goal of dismantling these groups. As the indictment describes, the SPLC was not dismantling these groups. It was instead manufacturing the extremism it purports to oppose by paying sources to stoke racial hatred.
Now, the SPLC is regularly cited by some corporate media as an authority on what are hate groups and what is hate speech, and they even are integral in some progressive movements in state houses across the country to advance different types of legislation. But the federal indictment coming from the Department of Justice, it alleges that between 2014 and 2023, SPLC gave $3 million to individuals associated with the Ku Klux Klan, United Klans of America, Unite the Right, National Alliance, National Socialist Movement, Aryan Nations affiliated, Sadistic Souls Motorcycle Club, also the American Nazi Party, and a group called the American Front. Other work the SLPC was doing that doesn't directly tie to the indictment, again, was going to state houses across the country and advocating for those progressive policies or advocating against conservative policies that touched on things from property taxes to education and so much more. Now, SPLC CEO Brian Fair said the group is outraged by the false accusations. That's a quote. He further said, taking on violent hate and extremist groups is among the most dangerous work there is, and he says they believe it is also among the most important work they do. He continued to say, to be clear, he says the program has saved lives. Now, Southern Poverty Law Center will increase public scrutiny of the tax-exempt organizations, which had nearly $800 million in assets, according to a research analyst after the indictment. Senior research analyst at American think tank Capital Research Center, Robert Stilson, he's told the Center Square that at a minimum, the Southern Poverty Law Center's indictment will further increase that public scrutiny. Now, back to Michigan, Secretary of State Benson's office did not respond to a request for comment from the Center Square regarding her role on the Southern Poverty Law Center's board or the federal charges that were filed against the SPLC. She has not released a statement regarding that indictment. Separately, Benson's also facing multiple lawsuits alleging racial discrimination within the Michigan Department of State, which she leads. You can find more of that story and the ongoing coverage of the lawsuit against the Southern Poverty Law Center at thecentersquare.com.